7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Pit Lane is proudly brought to you by the Australian Sports Sedan Association and the Grunt Performance Victorian Sports Sedan Championship.
Welcome back to a brand new series of In Pit Lane, coming to you live on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel, also via Facebook Live and on demand on inpitlane.com. Also, we welcome back our friends at Channel 31 Melbourne. Yes, we're back on 31 Melbourne. We're not live, in fact, we're probably very much on delay, but we are back on 31. We had so many people who wanted us to come back to Channel 31. As much as we would like to sort of think broadcast television has past its use-by date, the fact is lots and lots of people out there still love their Channel 31. They watch all the time, and yet another reason why Channel 31 and community television needs to be saved in Australia, because when it gets shut down, an awful lot of people are going to be disenfranchised. That is the end of the political statement, written, spoken, and authorised by Brett Ramsey of Parts Unknown. Now, coming up this weekend down at Phillip Island is one of the biggest events of the year. It's not just one of the biggest events in Australia, it's also one of the biggest events in the whole world of motorsport, and that's official. It's the Phillip Island Festival of Classic Motorsport, and we have, for our live viewers, sorry Channel 31 is going to be a bit late for you, but if you're watching us live, another reason to watch us live on YouTube, we have passes to give away. We'll tell you how to get those later. We haven't worked out how we're going to get them to you. You might have to come and pick them up from me personally at a pub near you. But anyway, we have passes to give away. We're also going to catch up with Graham McLean from the Victorian Historic Racing Register to find out what's happening this weekend on what's going to be a huge meeting. But also last weekend, the reason that we're back is that with the support of our friends from the Australian Sports Sedan Association, and last weekend out at Sandown, the opening round of the Victorian State Series was also the opening round of the Victorian Sports Sedan Championship. Really good turnout of cars and a brand new sponsor. Let's take you to Sandown and show you what happened.
Fine weather and a great turnout of cars for round one of the 2018 Victorian Sports Sedan season at Sandown last weekend. The championship received a welcome last-minute boost with the news of a new sponsor for the opening two rounds.
We've got Grunt Performance have come on board for round one and possibly round two at this stage. Liam and Steph run a family-owned business down in Langwarrin, and they specialise in race car preparation, but construction and all your race car needs really. They do a great job, and they come to the track with track support and run a few IPR cars, and yeah, they do a really good job down there.
We really see a lot of potential in the class. It's been fantastic so far, but there's so much more that the category could be doing, and we think we'd love to be part of it. We currently run a car in the championship on and off, but it's something that we can see endless potential and want to get behind it. Grunt Performance is a business that's based around the client. So what we try to do is offer a complete service to our clients, whether that be from people getting into the sport, from organising private OLTs, coaching, driving, right the way through to building cars from scratch, preparing and maintaining cars, and everything in between. So there's not much we outsource at all. We try to keep everything in-house for multiple reasons. One, for quality assurance, and two, time frames. We understand that race meets don't wait for people, so we have to make sure that we can adhere to those time frames.
Numbers were well up on the corresponding meeting last year, and organisers are confident that from here things will only get even better.
So this year we've got 5 rounds, including the 50k plate at Phillip Island at the end of the round as the big deal closer. And we're here at round 1 at Sandown, and we've got a really good turnout. We've got 28 cars on the grid for race 1 this afternoon. Well, this year we've got the Victorian touring car guys that have come along, and so they've got 3 cars on the grid with us. The 2 leader guys are actually racing with us this weekend as well, and they've brought a couple of their Pulsar mates along. We've got Rick Newman in the New Line car that's come along, and he's going really well. Dean Cam's back, Chaz is back, so we've got a few cars back, and we've got even more getting built this year.
Race 1 on Saturday afternoon saw an all-the-way victory to Dean Cam in the Trans Am Corvette. but the fight for second was hard fought all the way between the ex-supercars of Rick Newman and Paul Panisi. Panisi was fast in the twisty bits, but on the long straights at Sandown, the 6-litre engine of the Ford was just too powerful. Chaz Talbot had a good debut in his new toy, the Camaro finishing in 4th place. Lee Partridge won the 2-litre class in his Mazda RX-7, and Danny Timewell won the Victorian Touring Car Championship class. Sunday saw Dean Cam romp away into the lead again after Newman bogged down at the start line. Ran McClurkin retired the V8 Nissan early with clutch problems, while Lee Partridge was also out in the under 2-litre Mazda. The Corvette had made a big break out in front, but on lap 5 Cam went missing, bogged in the turn 1 gravel. This left Newman's Falcon to take the win from Panisi, with Talbot third in the Camaro. Steve Howard's Toyota Corolla won the under 2-litre class. As the cars rolled around for the 10-lap feature race, Newman was on pole, but Cam was nowhere to be seen. Oh no, there he is! Heading back to the pits behind the recovery vehicle, an unfortunate end to a weekend that had started just so very well. With Cam gone, Newman raced to an early lead, with Talbot getting the jump on Panisi for second position. Panisi fought his way past the Camaro on lap 2, but by that stage Newman was well gone. Bob Gill made it back on track for the third race after he damaged his Falcon in Saturday morning's qualifying session. And Daniel Timewell's Commodore had a great battle with Vin Steng's R32 Skyline and the RX-7 of Warren Cleland. The only real incident of the race came with a harmless spin at turn 1 from the Nissan Pulsar of Gavin Reynolds. Newman was dominant in the final and took a comfortable win from Panesi, with Talbot back in third. Steve Howard won the under 2-litre class from Sam Spears Alpha, while Matthew Firmino came out in top in the fight between the Nissan Pulsars. But it was a great weekend for Newman, who leaves Sandown in the championship lead.
Different category to racing compared to IP, which is actually refreshing. Some good competitive racing, fast racing, something I'm not used to. But the car's running well. Boys at Ravage Raceworks have put it together just magnificently. So yeah, only the second time I've driven the car. So it's got a fair bit of potential that I've got to try and find. It's not the car, it's the driver. But no, really good weekend.
So tell us about the car. It's not the improved production car. This is a car with a bit of a history.
Yes, it's an Briggs Motorsport chassis. It's actually a supercar. It was an AU, one of the Longhurst cars, the number 65, that ran as a better electrical car for a while. Then ended up in the hands of Jason Heck, who ran it at Queensland, but it got shunted, I think it was 04, it got a shunt. So it got life transformed from an AU to a BF. Boys over at Riverside Racing did that. And yeah, we found it as a rolling shell and spent the last couple of years putting it together. And yeah, we did Bathurst combined sedans at the start of the year, and of all places to do it was a bit of a baptism of fire. We found Griffin's Bend at 120 k's into the wall, which wasn't too flash, but ironed out that power steering issue, and here we are having a bit of fun.
Round 2 of the Grunt Performance Victorian Sports Sedan Championships will be at the spectacular Phillip Island circuit on the weekend of May 5th and 6th.
Speaking of the spectacular Phillip Island circuit, that'll be the site this weekend of the Phillip Island Historic Classic Festival of Motorsport, and we're going to find out more about that when we return. We're all watching In Pit Lane, live on YouTube and also via Channel 31. Don't go away, and we'll be right back. Okay, now for all of you watching on YouTube, we've got to say thank you, as I said, to our friends from the Australian Sports Sedan Association of Victoria. They were basically responsible for dragging us back here onto the program. Wouldn't have been possible without them. And yeah, I mean, the thing about sports sedans is, remember when cars were like really, really cool? Remember when you followed cars and not, you know, drivers or teams or God forbid even sponsors? You know, cars like Brian Thompson's VW Chev, John McCormack's Ansett Repco Charger, Alan Moffat's Mustang, Capri, Monza, Ron Harrop's EH Holden. Classic cars, the most memorable cars in Australian motorsport. Well, the good news is that they're all sports sedans. And the good news is Sports Sedans, as we just saw in that story, are back in action, and they're still providing a very, very welcome relief to the sort of cookie-cutter racing that you see everywhere else. And the good news is you can become involved in Sports Sedan racing, not necessarily just as a driver. If you don't have the budget, there are other ways that you can get involved if you're a fan of sports sedans by joining the Australian Sports Sedan Association. You can get involved in things like event management. They run a big meeting at Sandown every year, round 3 of the Victorian State Championship. You can get involved in that. You can get involved in marketing, a whole range of social events as well. If you'd like to find out more about it, go to their website. Their website is at www.sportsedan.com.au, and don't just sit on the sideline. Get involved. A great bunch of people, one of the friendliest groups of people, one of the most eccentric bunches of people in the whole of motorsport. And let's face it, eccentric people in motorsport are becoming a very, very rare commodity indeed. So, we do thank everybody here at RMI TV and In Pit Lane would like to thank the Australian Sports Sedan Association for their support of this program, and we'll keep you up to date with all that's happening with the sports sedans here in Victoria and the Grunt Performance Victorian Sports Sedan Championship in the months and weeks to come here on In Pit Lane. Well, welcome back. Well, coming up this weekend out at Phillip Island is one of the biggest events in Australian motorsport on the local calendar. It's probably the biggest four-wheel motorsport event that happens at Phillip Island every year, and that might surprise people. A lot of people would automatically say, the supercars, they're huge. They're not necessarily as huge as what's happening this weekend. It's the Phillip Island Classic Historic Festival of Motorsport. It has been officially recognised as one of the best events of its kind in the world. There is always a massive turnout, always a lot of very, very interesting cars and drivers for that matter to check out over the weekend. And I understand the weather's looking pretty good at this stage. To find out more about what's happening from the Victorian Historic Racing Register, it's a big welcome to Graham McLean. Graham, welcome to In Pit Lane.
Thank you very much, Brett. We're delighted to be here.
Now let's cut to the chase. First of all, numbers are always very good. What sort of numbers do we have for the weekend?
The entries this year are around well in excess of 400, and we've got some really very interesting cars coming through. It is one of the largest historic motor races in the world by the number of entries that we have, and also for the number of races. In excess of 50 over the 3-day period, so it's tight and it's busy.
Now that's the thing. We might get onto this a little bit later as well in terms of just how tight it all is. But one of the things that you find is that Friday you have qualifying in the morning, and then you go straight into races, and from that point, from Friday lunchtime, it's race after race after race after race. It is a packed program. So. Is that becoming a bit of a problem, that it's just become just too popular and there's just too many people and too many races?
Well, no, we've had higher numbers than this, and it's all very tightly controlled and very professionally run. This year, of course, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Formula 5000, and we have a large contingent from New Zealand, which is always a very strong Formula 5000 group. They'll be racing, and what's not generally known is, of course, the Formula 5000 is actually faster than the V8 supercars. So, and we've got Dave Reynolds, who won Bathurst, of course. He'll be racing in a Mustang. And we've got John Bauer, who'll be racing in a 1974 Formula 1, and he'll be racing against the top Formula 5000 drivers in Australia. So we're going to see, that'll be one of the feature races, and it'll be quite spectacular.
That's one of the things, as I said, it's not just the cars that you're going to be able to see there, but you get a lot of the classic drivers coming back as well.
Yes.
And this is a great opportunity, isn't it, for people who go down there. If you've got any interest in motorsport at all, head down on the weekend, but make sure you take your autograph book, because I know years ago at Sandown, when the great Fangio came out, I met the great man, and I didn't have a piece of, and I'm regretting it now.
Well, we generally have a signing team of wonderful old. We're celebrating a lot of historic drivers with signing posters and things. So that's always an opportunity to get a signature on a poster or in your book. But we've got some wonderful cars coming this year. We've got some wonderful high-powered sports cars coming as well. So that's always interesting. But this year we've got 2 drivers flying in from the UK. Andy Newell will be driving Bob Harborough's McLaren, and that will be really quite spectacular as well. So
You
we've
mentioned those sports cars too. There's a couple of interesting sports. There's a couple of, I think they're called Pro Sport 3000, which we haven't seen in Australia. But one of them is powered by a Cosworth engine. The other one is powered by a Ferrari engine.
Yes,
so
yes.
it will sound amazing. And that's the thing you find, isn't it, when you take sort of young people down and they suddenly find out that once upon a time, when dinosaurs ruled the earth, racing cars actually sounded like racing cars and not like sort of souped-up Dyson vacuum cleaners.
Oh, that's right. Well, you know, we're going to have the 1952 Carroll Shelby's Allard there, the JX2, and that's the first time that's been seen racing in Australia. So that really is an exciting thing. And we've also got Joe Collegia's cars. There are, I think, 3 or more coming down. There's the 1973 Formula One March, and originally raced by Niki Lauda. That's going to be racing there, and a 1966 Corvette and a 1969 Mustang. So there's a great variety of cars there to have a look at.
That Corvette is absolutely gorgeous. In fact, most of the Group S cars, and they will be probably some of your biggest fields. We saw them in action up at Bathurst,
Yes.
at Mount Panorama, and that was a great addition to the 12-hour this year, was to see those cars. They sort of fitted in perfectly with that particular meeting. The other thing about Phillip Island over the years that we always notice is the fact that because you've got such a packed, on-track card, you don't get time to see all those other things because there's a whole other world out there in terms of it's a major car show in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, we have more than 1,000 cars coming on display. It's rather interesting this year because we've got the Rouge Mustang, the 2018 Rouge Mustang being launched in Australia at the Phillip Island event. And 3 of the senior executives from the company coming from the States will be there for that particular launch. So it's an amazing event, and we have in the Expo Centre at Phillip Island, we have almost 20 exhibitors in there, all sorts of different products, memorabilia, Roush souvenirs. We have things like Coplock, which is an Australian invention of a vehicle safety, vehicle security device, which is creating a lot of interest.
You also do get that with all of the merchandise that's down there. If you're looking for like old magazines or books or video or anything like
absolutely, they're all there.
Chances are you're going to find it down there as well. If you want
Yes.
to add to your collection, it's certainly the place to go to on the weekend.
Now, it's a bit like your radio, like your channel. We rely on sponsors, and we're very fortunate this year. We have Burson Auto Parts have taken on the naming rights for the event, and they're a major sponsor. But we have some long-term sponsors like Cool Drive and Shannon's and Penrite. And this year we've also got the Ryker Filter people come on board, which is just exciting. So it's a celebration of motorsport and motor industry events down there.
Okay, well, we'll find out more about what's coming up, and also I think sort of have a look into the future as well in terms of where we're going with this meeting, because it has grown in the years that we've been following. It has grown at an extraordinary rate,
Yes.
and historic racing around the world is getting just growing at an astonishing rate every year.
Without a
So
doubt.
we will we'll talk to you about that and a bit about your role in the weekend and also the VHRR in just a moment. But we're going to take a break right now. Another break for our friends on Channel 31, and when we come back after that break, we'll be joined once again by Graham McLean. So you're watching In Pit Lane. We'll be right back in just a moment. Okay, well, we will just now, for our viewers at home, as I said, we do have some parts to give away. Now, as I said, we didn't know these were coming, so I'm not sure how we're going to get these to you. We might be able to sort of arrange to leave them at the credentials office or something like that, and at the track. So we might try and arrange that. But if you would like a pass it's a 3-day pass to this weekend's historic racing down at Phillip Island, by all means, look, just drop us a line, leave a message, some comments on the YouTube page or the Facebook page, like and subscribe, and just say, hey, I would like a free ticket to the historic Phillip Island this weekend, and look, we'll see what we can do for you. We don't make any promises, but if we can, we shall. Okay, so we'll welcome back our viewers to Channel 31 by saying Welcome back to In Pit Lane. Our guest tonight is Graham McLean from the Victorian Historic Racing Register, who are running this weekend's Phillip Island Historic Classic. And Graham, let's talk about how big this meeting has become and the fact that there are similar meetings of a similar size around the world. And I've been lucky enough to attend a few of them, things like Goodwood, the Revival, the Festival of Speed, those sorts of events. They're very professionally run, they're very big budget. This is a meeting of a similar scope, but it's not a full-time job for you guys. It's very much sort of, like it's like us here on RMI TV. It's a lot of passionate people doing this stuff for nothing.
It is.
Are we getting to the stage now where this is becoming just so big and so popular around the world that you're going to have to look at the possibility of sort of farming it out to a professional organisation?
I think that's possibly down the track. At the moment, everybody is enthusiastic and coping well. It's a very big team. We have probably upwards of 30 people on the organising committee, each one with a particular role to play, and they do that extremely well. It is probably the only event of this size that is still run by volunteers, and we have in excess of 400 volunteers on the day over the 3 days of racing, and so it's very much a passion for a lot of people. I think it is growing year on year. We're noticing that, and we're doing it without any support from government. There's no support from government at all.
Oh, we know what that's like.
Well, we'd also like to be involved.
At least they're not trying to shut you down. They're trying to shut us down.
Well, one of the nice things about, we'd like to get a little bit of support and from the big events in Melbourne as well. I think there is a real place for that, and
because it would bring in just from the competitors and the officials alone, not to mention a media contingent, because it's not just local media. I mean, you've got media coming from all over, from New Zealand, from England, from the United States. They come from all over the world for this. The number of people that must be brought into the Phillip Island area for the weekend for something like this must be enormous.
Yeah, it's impossible to get accommodation anywhere in the close vicinity of Phillip Island because of that. And I think
I'm in close vicinity. If anybody wants to camp in my backyard, we can come to an arrangement.
That's good.
I need the money. God knows.
We have a very strong media contingent coming down. There's probably in excess of about
a very
50 to 60
large. We
people.
won't call it strong. We'll call it large.
Okay. No, that's fine, and we're very grateful because we rely on sponsors, but it's difficult to get funding to go on Main Street television. We'd love to do that because a lot of people of older years would love to see and have a nostalgic trip down there.
We certainly spoke about live streaming the Sandown around all that, but people don't realise the money involved. I mean, even at the level that we could do it, it's still a very, very substantial. Motor racing is horrendously expensive to cover.
Well, the vehicles alone, many of the vehicles racing down at Phillip Island would be in excess of $1 million, and that's just one car, and then they've got their running costs. So it is important.
Yes, it would be great if we could have lives, because we do see. Incidentally, speaking of live streaming, we mentioned Goodwood and the Revival coming up. The Goodwood members meeting is coming up, and you'll be able to watch that live streamed on inpitlane.com coming up in a few weeks' time. That's always a great meeting as well.
Yes,
what about the date? It's always been sort of attached to the Australian Grand Prix. Now there's a 1 week gap.
It's usually 1 week. We've got 2 weeks this year.
2 weeks this year, yeah.
We've taken the long weekend. We'll have to review that and see how the long weekend works again. We've had it on the long weekends a number of times. Our dates are generally related to 1 week prior to the Grand Prix. And many of the cars are actually doing historic racing and demonstration runs at the Grand Prix as well, although that won't happen this year.
Yes, I noticed that. That's the first time for a long time. But they didn't have Don Kinsey leading on this year.
Well, Don is a very big loss to us all, of course.
Very, very much so.
Lost to motorsport.
A regular on the program for many, many years here, and we absolutely loved Don. Well, and he was that voice, that knowledge, the passion, everything about him. One of the great men.
Well, he had an encyclopedic memory of motorsport around the world, and that is something that is sadly missed.
Well, that's certainly the case. Look, we could talk about this for ages, and we probably will in just a moment for our people watching live on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. But unfortunately for our Channel 31 friends, the problem with of television in this modern world is it actually comes with sort of time restraints, and we've run right out of time on Channel 31. So remember, you can watch In Pit Lane every week live at 9 o'clock on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel, or you can come back here and watch on delay on Channel 30. Channel31 and also on demand at inpitlane.com. But right now, to take us out, and we'll be back with Graham for our YouTube people in just a moment, but to take us out tonight, a bit of music from last year. And until we see you next week to preview the Australian Grand Prix, good night.
I always feel degraded. It's time to change and it's a constant investment. I pull it out of my pockets. No, I've got nothing susceptible to impulses. I feel like we're falling down. Now I'm flat broke. Can't control, so a group in a room that decides it all. This is what we feed them. Now I'm flat broke, thanks to higher powers that we can't control. So a group in a room that decides it all. This is what we feed them. Trying to get by, you put it up on walls and malls. You'll feel better if you buy, but it's all lies. Money doesn't make the world go round, but you're determined to make us believe that it's the key to fixing all our problems. Now I'm flat broke, thanks to higher powers that we can't control. Is there a group in a room that decides it all? This is what we feed them. Now I'm flat broke, thanks to higher powers that we can't control. Is there a group in a room that decides it all? This is what we feed them. Take it to me. Broke, blaming higher powers that we can't control. No, this cycle won't end at all, but it's your choice to listen. Thank you.
Yes, a little bit of music from last year. We'll be having live bands back in the studio very, very soon. In fact, next week we'll see what we can do about next week. But thanks to all of our bands over the years who have contributed a lot to the atmosphere of the program. It's over 22 years. You know, man does not live by motorsport alone. There is also music. There is love. There is food. There is the occasional glass of wine, all of which will be on display over the weekend at Phillip Island. And Graham McLean from the Victorian Historic Racing Register is still here with us just to wrap up. Now, there's a few other things. We mentioned all the Fords that are going to be out there.
Oh, I think you've got about every mark that imaginable.
Yeah, tell us about Toranas. This is something really big for Torana people. So the Torana people who are watching on Channel 31, I'm afraid you've missed this, but you can tell them what's happening. This is big.
Well, it's the Torana boys are having their national convention down at Phillip Island this year, so we'll have a very strong contingent of the Torana people there, and there are something like 50 odd Jaguars going to be there, about 40 Aston Martins, and so we've got
unless of course it rains, in which case there'll be 14 Jaguars.
Yeah. Well, we've got some fine weather absolutely scheduled for this. We've been very fortunate over the years to have had good weather over the last few years, because Bass Strait, when it's nasty, it can be very nasty. But
oh yes.
But we're also supporting a couple of charities down there. The Here to You is a charity which provides children with hearing aid, or with children with hearing disabilities. It helps them with some aids, and there's a charity a raffle being held down there. It's a 392 horsepower Dodge Charger, which is being raffled.
And there you go.
So that will be something really special.
Now, how much is that? Now, that is a prize and a half.
It is a prize and a half, and I think there'll be a lot of activity around that store.
I think there shall be. Yes. Go head down there, and Chrysler fans, Stuart, if you're watching, there you go. You can finally have that Dodge Charger you've always wanted.
So that's going to be in the Expo Centre, and also we're supporting Yams, which is
I love yams. I eat them all the time.
Well, this is You Are My Sunshine. That's
very nice. Thank you, Graham. I didn't get you anything.
It's a charity dedicated to raising research funds for neuroblastoma, which is a very rare but deadly cancer that affects children under 5 years of age. Now they're going to be having rides in a McLaren around the track. You can actually buy a ride in a McLaren with Fraser Ross. So that's also another opportunity for visitors coming down.
Oh, that's fantastic. So just for the details, starting off on Friday, and
yes.
Take us through what's happening.
Well, racing starts at, we've got racing, engines don't start till 9 o'clock and finish it before 5, just on 5 o'clock. So we've got 3 full days of racing down there. So it'll be some wonderful entertainment Friday, and it's a full program each of the 3 days. We've also got the Shannon's drive as well. They do that every year, and that's always a spectacular event as well. Gives the opportunity for people to participate.
Okay, well, if you want to find out any more, sort of head to the Victorian Historic Racing Register website, or stay tuned to In Pit Lane. We'll certainly be down there over the weekend and getting footage and getting stories, interviews and the like for next week's program. But
wonderful,
Graham, thank you for coming in. Thank you for the passes. As I said, if anybody out there would like a pass, we will do our best. We will probably leave them at the credentials office. We'll pop them into an envelope and send them down. So if you would like a pass to the meeting on the weekend, contact us. Just leave us a message on the Facebook page, or leave us a message. For practical reasons, we'll cut that off at well, let's say 4 o'clock Wednesday afternoon. That's probably gives you enough time. So if you know any friends in Melbourne, if you're not coming down yourself, tell them to watch the In Pit Lane YouTube channel, watch the program, and let us know, and we'll do our best to get you down there if indeed we can. Thank you, Graham, for coming in. We'll see you down there on the weekend.
Indeed.
And let's all hope for a fine weekend and a safe weekend. But thanks for joining us in Pit Lane.
Enjoy some wonderful racing. Thank you, Brett.
And thank you to you at home. As I said, that's all that we have time for this week on the program. Remember, you can watch In Pit Lane live every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. Also on demand at inpitlane.com. And of course, as I said, a heavily edited version of the program, which will go to air on delay on Channel 31. But it's good to be back on 31. As I said, it's something a lot of older people really did want us to get back there. So we are back there, and but hopefully you'll eventually people will come across and watch online, because we can do extra stuff like this. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Same time, Channel 31 and inpitlane.com and the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. Until then, from all of us here, bye for now. Fade to black.